What are we discussing on today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast? The Dbacks sweep the Miami Marlins, but not courtesy of Jordan Montgomery. Is it time to finally pull the plug on Monty?
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. I'm Millard Thomas, host of this wonderful podcast. I'm a multimedia journalist and I'm a graphic designer, so please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com. On there you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. On today's show, we'll be talking about the Dbacks sweeping the Miami Marlins. Who's more him between Pederson and Jake McCarthy? And then is it time to pull the plug on Jordan Montgomery? Thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. And one of those platforms is YouTube. Please hit subscribe to Locked On Diamondbacks on YouTube. All right. Let's get into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, and let's talk about that D-backs sweep over the Miami Marlins, because you look at the scores of this series and you might think it was a convincing sweep by the D-backs. You put up 10 runs in the finale, and you have two fantastic comeback wins in your last two games against the Marlins. You think this could have been a convincing series when looking at the score, but you dig a little bit deeper into the box score and you realize the Marlins actually out-hit the D-backs in every game this series, but did not matter because the D-backs were the clutcher team, they were the more patient team, and they were the more powerful team. The D-backs repeatedly came through late in the innings, like we saw in yesterday's game, as we saw in game number 3 today. D-backs down 3 runs. It does not matter. Lourdes Gurriel off the bench, bases clearing double. And the D-backs just repeatedly do what they've been doing since June 1st, since June 29th, whatever date you want to pick. This D-backs offense has been so reliable. Like I always say, whenever the D-backs are down in a game, just go on FanDuel and place a little money down on the D-backs money line, because they feel inevitable in these games. And despite the D-backs being down a few runs in the finale, I never had any my faith never wavered that the D-backs weren't going to come back in that game, because even though Jordan Montgomery wasn't good, I just still believed in this D-backs offense against that Marlins pitching. And I didn't know if the Marlins offense was going to be able to keep up with the D-backs offense late in the game. The Marlins offense repeatedly was able to put the runner in scoring position to win the game in like every game this series. Repeatedly, it like came down to the final batter in the 9th inning, and the D-backs were able repeatedly to put the Marlins away in the biggest situations. And this finale, the D-backs were just able again to do that. Lourdes Gurriel off the bench. We've been waiting for Gurriel to heat up. We've been talking about it since June 29th. Everybody who's been an everyday player for the D-backs has been good since the 29th, at least 100 WRC plus, which is considered league average, except for Gurriel. But you look at yesterday's game, Gurriel, of course, has that big home run late in the game yesterday, which really helps out the D-backs in the 6th inning. And then in today's game, Lourdes Gurriel off the bench, bases loaded, clears it with a deep double to dead center, and he was huge. He also had in his second bat another RBI single, and Lourdes Gurriel was just really, really important in this game, and he was really important in this series. And with the stars of Marte, Walker, Moreno out, we've needed some other players to step up. And for the D-backs, they've just gotten guys who were already expected to be contributors at the beginning of the year who were disappointing. Those guys have finally started to turn around their season. The Eugenio Suarez's, the Corbin Carrolls, like those guys have finally been effective the last couple months. Of course, the Jake McCarthys have been on fire. The Geraldo Perdomos came back off the injured list, have been helpful. Now you're getting guys like Lourdes Gurriel finally contributing to this offense as well. Like we've talked about, like this offense has an opportunity to be even better, which is crazy to think about because they've been the best offense in baseball since June 1st. They're number one in runs scored, but we haven't seen the full lineup. We haven't seen a full lineup with everyone clicking because now Lourdes Gurriel is starting to get it going as well. He's up to a 274, 312, 418 slash line. So if you get Walker, Marte, Moreno back with the Suarez's, the Carrolls, and the Gurriels all heating up, Perdomo doing what Perdomo does, Jake the Rake continuing this hot streak. You got Jock Pederson, Randall Grichuk, Josh Bell, all available at bats too. Like that D-backs lineup all of a sudden is, I think, the deepest potentially in the National League. There's some other great lineups in the Phillies and Dodgers, but are they as deep as the D-backs? I think those lineups are definitely better at the top, but do you like your 7th, 8th, and 9th as good as what the D-backs can throw out or the bench options? Like there are some games where you can have Grichuk, Josh Bell, and like one other solid piece available off the bench, like a Kevin Newman and a Adrian Del Castillo. Like those could all be bench players for the D-backs in a big game. I don't know if the Phillies or the Dodgers have options like that off the bench. And I think that's one of the big reasons why the D-backs have been so good this season, because you actually look at the D-backs in terms of pinch hitting situations. They're the best in the National League. They have the most hits in pinch hitting situations in the National League over the Dodgers. 29 hits for the D-backs, only 21 for the Dodgers. They have 6 home runs in pinch hitting situations. The next team has 4. They have 21 RBIs, tied for the most in the National League as well. Like this is a team that comes through with guys off the bench. We saw it today with the Randall Grichuk, even before, or we saw it today with Lourdes Gurriel. Even before that, Randall Grichuk had himself a very nice at bat as well. We've seen Jock Pederson come off the bench, deliver big home runs. We've seen Corbin Carroll off the bench deliver big home runs. Like this is a team of clutch hitters that don't even need to start the game. They could come off the bench and deliver a big hit. We know Alek Thomas, that's his specialty. And so that's an area that the D-backs have been so good at this season, and I don't want to overlook it. The guy who's actually number 1 in pinch hits this season, Randall Grichuk, he has 10. The next guy has 6. So he's been the clutchest guy, you could say, off the bench. Lourdes Gurriel, he's tied for the lead of home runs off the bench with 2 this season. And so the D-backs, you don't even need your guys to start the game. They're getting great production from guys off the bench as well. Jake McCarthy continued to rake in this game. He had a monster home run, his second monster home run this series, and the offense does what the offense needs to do. 10 runs on the board, 12 hits total, 7 walks. It was a good day by the offense. One guy it was not a good day for, Jordan Montgomery, and we'll discuss if the D-backs need to pull the plug on him in segment number 3, but you look at the standings right now, D-backs now tied with the Padres once again in the NL West standings. They move up to second place in the division, and the Dodgers currently playing the Mariners. So if they lose that game, D-backs only 3 games back of the Dodgers if they lose that game. So we will be rooting for a worst case scenario for LA, but great series for the D-backs to get back on track after getting swept by the Rays. They now sweep the Marlins, and their next opponent Friday against the Boston Red Sox, which we'll preview on tomorrow's podcast. But next, I want to talk about who's been more him this season, Jake or Jock. We'll discuss in segment number 2. For those of us who thrive on getting stuff done, including workouts, every minute counts. That's why you need Tonal, the smart strength training system that takes the guesswork out of working out so you can make sure you're making the most out of every rep. Tonal is the world's smartest and most effective strength training system that helps get you stronger. Powered by AI, Tonal learns with every rep so it can deliver workouts personalized just for you. It's like having a personal trainer at home with you, as Tonal will optimize every workout just for you. Unlike traditional gym equipment, Tonal uses adaptive digital weight to advance your training techniques. Right now, Tonal is offering our listeners $200 off your Tonal purchase with promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's tonal.com and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $200 off your first purchase. That's tonal.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $200 off. All right, all right, all right. Let's get back to the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast and let's discuss who's been more him this season between Jock and Jake McCarthy. And what is him, I guess, for our older audience? I mean, if you have kids, you probably already know. It's if you're that dude, right? If you're the guy that steps up in the biggest situations, you're the person that everyone looks to in the biggest moments. You're the guy that puts the team on their back to carry them and persevere through the toughest moments in a ball game. And we've seen a little him off between Jock Pederson and Jake McCarthy because I forgot what game it was. I think it was against the Pirates or maybe right after that, where Jock Pederson had a huge home run. Then you saw him screaming in the camera. It's all over Dbacks social. I'm him. I'm him. He's beating his chest. He's screaming at the dugout. He's hyped. And then Jake McCarthy in this series, I believe in that first game, he had a home run. And then he was screaming at Jock Pederson and everyone in the dugout. No, I'm him. I'm him. So I actually want to ask, who has been more him for the D-backs this season? Has it been Jake McCarthy or has it been Jock Pederson? Because you look at the numbers for these two guys this season, it's been so close. Both of these guys have been so important for the D-backs this year. Jake McCarthy has played 4 more games than Jock Pederson this season. And so it's extremely close between those two guys. You look at Jake McCarthy's slash line, 304, 376, 457. Jock Pederson is 292, 406, 553. So the OPS definitely goes to Jock Pederson. The power goes to Jock Pederson, but the overall hitting ability goes to Jake. The speed goes to Jake. And so who has been more him for the D-backs this season? Because we know recently Jake McCarthy has been so good for the D-backs since July. He's been arguably the best and hottest player in the National League since the All-Star break. Like, he's been on fire, but the same can also be said for Jock Pederson, who has been just as hot during that time. And so it's like, who has been more him for the D-backs recently? It's really hard to say. And even when you dive deep into the numbers, it's hard to figure out because I love looking at stuff like runners in scoring position, the clutch stats. And even if you look at that, it's hard to decide who's been more him between these two guys because Jock Pederson entering today's game, 354 average, 1184 OPS with runners in scoring position, 6 home runs, 42 RBIs. That's in 65 at bats. Like, he's been phenomenal, a superstar. Everything you could have wanted when you signed Jock Pederson this offseason, he's given you. He's crushed right-handed pitching. He's delivered big clutch home runs. He comes through at runners in scoring position. Like, he's done everything. He's been a great value and bargain signing. And I think we all hope he resigns with the D-backs this offseason. But even Jake McCarthy, you look at his numbers at runners in scoring position. Entering this game, a 366 average. So even higher than Jock Pederson. But OPS, 1069, slightly lower, right? He has 71 at-bats with runners in scoring position. So not that much larger of a sample size. 33 ribbies. So both of those guys get a ton of base hits. Both of those guys drive in a ton of dudes. Jake McCarthy, he scores a little bit more. Jock Pederson drives them in a little bit more, which makes sense when you look at the two profiles of the two players, but they both dominate with the runners in scoring position, which is like the only thing that matters. You look at 2 outs and runners in scoring position. Jake McCarthy, 316 average, 948 OPS. Jock Pederson, 924 OPS. Like, both of these guys, even if it's 2 outs, even if it's still runners in scoring position, both of these guys still dominate. How about high leverage moments? Entering today, Jake McCarthy, 333 average, 950 OPS. Jock Pederson, 415 average, 1404 OPS. Like, both of these guys, clutch situations, runners in scoring position, high leverage moments. It does not matter. Both of these guys absolutely crush it. Jake McCarthy, he's been so important to the D-backs this season with the Corbin Carroll starting so slow those first couple months. The Lourdes Gurriel's finally starting to get it going. Alec Thomas struggling. Like, we've needed Jake McCarthy to really step up. His only path to playing time this year was Jake McCarthy doing well against left-handed pitching as a left-handed at bat, because you're going to have Carroll playing every day. Gurriel is probably going to play every day. Randall Grichuk was already going to play against lefty pitchers. And then Alec Thomas is, of course, going to play against righty pitchers. So it's like, where does that leave Jake McCarthy if you're going to probably be starting Corbin Carroll, Alec Thomas against righties, and then Lourdes Gurriel just feels like an everyday locked-in guy? It's like, how am I really supposed to get my at-bats if I'm a Jake McCarthy? I would have to do better against the left-handed pitching if I'm Jake, if I really want to play, because Alec Thomas is not going to play that much against left-handed pitching. That's where Jake McCarthy has dominated this season, and that's how he's earned so much playing time, because he's really done well against left-handed pitching this season. 261 average, so it's gone down for Jake, but still an 849 OPS against lefties. I'm actually looking at Jock Pederson's stats right now. So Jock Pederson, 849 OPS against lefties, 968 OPS against righties, which is, we always say we can't play him against lefties. Yes, you can. Jock Pederson is actually fine against lefties. Jake McCarthy, 870 OPS against the lefties, 355 average against lefties. Against righties, he's only 284 average, 812 OPS. So Jake actually better against the lefties than the righties this season. And for Jock Pederson, the fact that he still has an 850 OPS against the lefties means even though there might be a lefty pitcher on the mound sometimes, we need Jock Pederson in the lineup, right? We've seen it the last couple weeks with the Martes, the Walkers, and Morenos out. There's been times the offense needs a little bit more oomph, especially the days where Torey Lovello's also like sitting a Eugenio or a Corbin Carroll. Like, sometimes you just have to go with Jock Pederson. Like, if you're going to be down those three players, and then you're also going to like maybe sit a Corbin Carroll or like a Lourdes Gurriel, someone in the outfield, then why not just play Jock Pederson and let him DH? Like, it does not matter if there's a lefty on the mound. Jock Pederson, the numbers tell you he's been fine against lefties this season. And also, if you're down talent, I'm sure Jock Pederson can be fine for a few at-bats against a left-handed pitcher, especially when you need the extra offense in your lineup. And so when trying to decide who's been more him between Jake McCarthy and Jock Pederson this season, it's so hard to say. Jock Pederson, he has all the hard contact stats, like the exit velo, hard hit percentage. That all goes to Jock Pederson. Like, Jake McCarthy does not have the hard contact stats like that, but he has a better strikeout rate. Like, his extra base hit percentage might not be as high as Jock Pederson, but his contact ability has been elite. Like, Jake McCarthy has been so good this season. Jock Pederson has been so good this season. And I actually think it's impossible to choose who's been more him. So that's why I'm actually going to make it a draw. Jock has more of the power. Jake has more of the speed. But both of those guys, their value to the D-backs this season, I think, has been equal. Jake, I guess, plays in the field. So maybe you could give him the slight edge. But then also Jock Pederson has like 100 points higher on his OPS. So I really think it's a toss-up, and I'll say both of those guys have been him for the D-backs this season. And now I want to talk about a guy who has not been him for the D-backs this season, Jordan Montgomery. We'll discuss him in segment number 3. Get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining supplyhouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. And also, if you're thinking about buying any tickets to an upcoming D-backs game, then of course, the best place to do that is going to be Game Time, because Game Time is the best place for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. No matter what you want to do, you want to go to Game Time for your tickets. They have all-in pricing, which is a feature that shows you the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Get a panoramic view from your seat before you buy. You could get the lowest price guarantee as well, where Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And also, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account or redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right. Let's get back to the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. And let's talk about Jordan Montgomery and if it's time to pull the plug on him, because I think we all know it's time to move off of Jordan Montgomery. I think the only issue is his contract, and the D-backs hopes to bring him back next season, because despite how bad he's been this year, I do think the D-backs would be interested in bringing him back next year on that option deal he has, because I don't think the D-backs believe the version of Jordan Montgomery that we're seeing now is going to be the version of Monty that we potentially get next year. But at least for the rest of this season, I think it's time to pull the plug on Monty. And whether that affects next season of him coming back or not, I don't really care, because we are in win now, right now mode. And for the D-backs, Jordan Montgomery just does not have it. After watching his start against the Miami Marlins and most of his starts this season, Monty, just for whatever reason, whether it's the spring training or him being out of shape or the humidity in a ballpark, Jordan Montgomery just does not have it right now. He went against the Marlins, a struggling team, a struggling offense, and he did not look good. 6 earned runs over 5.2 innings pitched, 10 hits. Jordan Montgomery, also 2 home runs allowed. Jordan Montgomery just looks bad out there right now. And we always make this comparison, but it's accurate. He is doing his best Madison Bumgarner impression right now, which sounds sad to say, because we knew how bad Mad Bum was for the D-backs, but you look at the numbers and it's hard to say they're pretty similar, because Mad Bum had a 6.48 ERA his first 9 starts of 2020, a 4.67 ERA in 26 starts in 2021. So you look at those two seasons, and it's probably pretty close to what Jordan Montgomery's doing. I'm sure through the first 18 starts of Mad Bum's career with the D-backs, it actually might be better than the first 18 starts that Jordan Montgomery has right now with Arizona, because his ERA all of a sudden with Arizona 6.44. I think if I did the math on Mad Bum, I don't think his ERA is even that high after 18 starts with the D-backs. So Monty has been bad this season. He actually has the worst ERA of any pitcher who's made 18 starts this season. And the worst part is, now that he's made 18 starts, his option for next year goes up another $2.5 million. If he makes it to 23 starts, it goes another $2.5 million. So if you don't want to owe Monty any more money for next season, if you are bringing him back, if you're Arizona, it's time to pull the plug on him right now. Make the contract less for next season and put the D-backs in the best position to win, because right now, Ryan Nelson is clearly better than Jordan Montgomery, and Monty would just be better served going to the bullpen. With the 6-man rotation, you make the bullpen more thin, right? That's been the pushback against the 6-man rotation. You make the bullpen a little bit more thin. We'll put Monty back there. You don't have Bryce Jarvis anymore. You don't really have that long reliever. Just give it to Jordan Montgomery. Now you have your third lefty in the pen, and he's our third go-to lefty. Like AJ Puck and Joe Mansply are definitely 2 lefties that I would trust more than Jordan Montgomery. And so he's your now least reliable reliever in the pen, either him or Dylan Floro. Like, you wouldn't even have to utilize Monty that much. He will be the guy that you utilize when if a Brendan Pfaadt has a blow up start or Ryan Nelson has a blow up start, then you throw Jordan Montgomery out there. But for the rest of this season, if I'm the D-backs and I'm trying to win as many games as possible and I'm trying to get that top wild card spot and potentially win the NL West, like I have to take Jordan Montgomery out of the rotation right now. I know you want to see if you could build him back up, see if you could instill that confidence and get him playing to the guy that we saw pitching the last 3 years. But that guy might not be available right now. You might need a full offseason of Monty getting back in shape and working with the D-backs pitching staff for you to see the Monty that we saw from the last 3 seasons. I don't know if he's going to come back in 24. He's already made a lot of starts, and we have not seen any real signs of him turning around. He looked better last week. He was utilizing all his pitches, but in this start today, not good at all. And when you have a guy like Ryan Nelson, who would just pitching so well for the D-backs right now, his ERA since July 1st, 2.73. Like Ryan Nelson's in his bag right now. He's more deserving of a rotation spot. He's pitching better than Jordan Montgomery. He has more faith. We all have more faith in Ryan Nelson. Like he's quite literally been the best D-back starter over the last 6-7 weeks of the season. And so for Jordan Montgomery, as cool as it would be for him to turn around his season, I just don't have much faith in that happening. As cool as it would be for Jordan Montgomery to come back next year, I'm not even sure if the D-backs need that to happen. I mean, you still got Gallen, you still have Merrill. I have more faith and confidence in Brandon Pfaadt than I ever had before. I know his ERA is still slightly above 4, but I have faith in that guy being around with the D-backs for a very long time and being at least a number 2 starter in a rotation. And then we have Erod for the next 4 years. And listen, if Ryan Nelson continues to pitch like this for the rest of the year and finishes with like a 3.8 ERA over 165 innings pitched, like, yeah, Ryan Nelson could potentially be deserving of that number 5 spot in the rotation next season. And so I am out on the Jordan Montgomery experience. I think it's time to go with your best guys, and that's Ryan Nelson as your number 5 starter. Now, that's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Come back tomorrow for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight as we'll preview the next series against the Boston Red Sox. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Toast.